So I will get started then. So welcome everyone to this a bit of a miserable afternoon, but I'm hoping this webinar will provide lots of thought and inspiration for our funding programme. So my name's Lola and I will be taking through our Research Fellowship 2025 applicant briefing today. We'll be joined by a member of our comms and engagement team later on, who will present some of the slides, and then the rest of our team are in the background looking at all of the information that comes through on the chat. So I will get started. I can pull up. Yeah. So our agenda today is to basically outline what our aim is for our funding opportunity. We want to support researchers to understand the requirements of submitting an application to our funding opportunity, which is opening next month, Research Fellowships 2025, where this is specific for ADR England flagship datasets. As you can see, we've got a jam-packed agenda going through what is ADR and why our fellowship programme is important for our mission, looking at the fundamentals of the actual funding programme and breaking some of them down, and then actually giving you some kind of ideas and tips to consider when developing a programme of work if you do want to put an application in, inclusive of why public engagement is important in data research. And because of the application form being held on the UKRI system, we do have some guidance for completing this type of form. And we understand the complexities of using admin data for researchers, and we do have a very specific model for supporting either applicants and then funded fellows going forward, and I just wanted to highlight them today. I will close and then open up for questions, and hopefully we can have a discussion. So quick housekeeping first. If you do have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A function. And please note this meeting is being recorded, and the slides and the recording will both be available on our website alongside an FAQ that's generated from the questions that you put forward at the end. So the objectives of this webinar is to help prospective applicants to be informed about the purpose and the structure of our funding model, ascertain what the fellowship objectives, the phases of a fellowship, and actually the deliverables that we need you to think about and put together going forward. Establish the expectations that we have around public and policy engagement, and learn how to develop and design feasible research when using ADR England flagship datasets. We want to help you discover what support is available when shaping an application, and then how to navigate the application process and assessment criteria. You've got an opportunity, as I mentioned, to ask questions because we want you to think about if you do want to apply and then how you can apply, and we want to support the entire process. So going on, the purpose of ADR Research Fellowships in supporting the ADR UK mission. So ADR is about making administrative data accessible to researchers across the UK for research in the interests of public good. Administrative data basically comes from information that's created when people interact with public services such as schools, the NHS, our courts, our justice system, the tax system. And it's not designed for research in the first place. It's designed to inform those individuals that work within those systems. So it's quite messy data. More importantly than anything, we recognise that this is public information. This is everyone's data, and therefore we embed public engagement in everything we do to build trustworthiness and social licence to use the data for research. Now we kind of cover the whole spectrum. We work with the data owners and data owning departments to identify what data can be used, and then we fund the linkage of these data sets. We fund the access infrastructure, so we fund networks of trusted research environments. You've got the ONS, you've got SAIL, you've got NISRA, and you've got EDRISH. And because this data is unique in its kind of makeup and its setting, we actually also fund researchers like the fellowship programme and PhDs to use these kind of data sets not just for our understanding to think about the benefits of the linkage, but more importantly, to provide opportunities to advance our understanding for societal good and address some of the biggest societal problems. And we provide training around the data sets, not just for those we fund, but for everyone to increase the capacity of the data use. And as I mentioned, it is public data, and public engagement and involvement is critical in our programme. And we've got key representation groups, we create public dialogue, and we make sure not only they are informed, but they inform us on our programme of work. So at the very heart of everything we do lies the linking of this data together. It is complex, and we do work with multiple partners across this stratosphere to ensure the process is as smooth as possible and as successful as possible. So we have our ADR UK core partners, and we engage and facilitate and understand what data is informing, what data can be linked, what data governance is needed to ensure these linkages can be happen. And we work with the data access partners. For ADR England, this is the Office of National Statistics. In fact, the ONS is our largest partner across our ADR programme, and we work very, very closely with them. And then the researchers come in, and the researchers help untwine and untwiddle any issues we have in the data. But more importantly, as I said, they undertake really, really groundbreaking and informative research. And this is why we come together to fund them and make sure that there is the infrastructure to support the data use. And within the infrastructure of the kind of the model of our fellowships, we make sure that there are points of dissemination and engagement, and the data owning departments are receiving the benefits of the research we fund. So ADR UK supports the entire administrative ecosystem. We work with the data owners, we work with a trusted research environment, and we work with the researchers. And each individual party has a real important process to play in the whole stratosphere of bringing admin data to life. We do have a list of what's available, or what data ADR UK has invested in or works with in terms of not just its linking, but its promotion and how it fits with our core kind of ideologies and categories of importance when we're thinking about key societal issues. And we have a learning hub where you can take you through the entire researcher journey if you're new to the system or advanced, and there are specific training courses for some of our key flagship data sets. We recently had an independent economic review of our programme as we're going into our new funding period next year. And this review showed that £1 invested in ADR UK, there is actually a benefit of over £5 in terms of how it benefits society, how the research that's coming out of what we're doing can inform policy and have policy impact. So the ADR UK Research Fellowship opportunity, there are 3 faces I just want to flag. It's not just myself who's involved in this programme. And at any point, if you have any questions, please do get in contact with us, and we'd be more than happy to help you. So the fundamentals of what we're trying to do, we want to enable policy relevant research using our ADR flagship data. The data is underpinned by an ADR flagship framework. We want to facilitate and inform and support new users to our ADR flagship data sets. And our programme is open to all accredited researchers. We want to build on previous and successful ADR research fellowships and their programmes of work, which you can find across our website. More importantly, I guess for kind of my messaging, we want to inspire the use of ADR flagship data. We want to drive research that benefits society. So a couple of key points in terms of what has to be included in an application or a proposal. It must use an ADR flagship dataset for this funding opportunity. You can include supplementary data where it's available and applicable, and if it's permitted within the SRS, if it has to come in through that measure. But the flagship dataset is the core part of a programme. Must start in September 2026. And ADR UK funds up to 80% of the full economic costs. Proposals are welcome from all types of researchers that are eligible, whether you're on fixed-term contracts or you're permanent members of staff. it is important for me to stress here, and I will stress it again at the end and throughout, that funding is subjective to data owner approval. So we have rigorous processes to ensure that what is being proposed is not only feasible, but it feeds into our areas of research priority, or those that have been proposed on the funding application, up to 18 months in duration. Now, within the first 3 months of any fellowship, this time is being kind of safeguarded for a researcher to plan what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Make sure that they've got access to the trusted research environment, and undertake any training that they think they will need, or they have been advised to need, or has been flagged that they should be doing, to ensure that they can use the flagship data within the trusted research environment. And during this time, you've the space to unpack what it is that you want to engage with, who you want to engage with, and who your stakeholder working group might be. More importantly, there won't be any access to the data, and this is in reflection to previous opportunities that we've run. In the next stage, that's 3 months to 18 months, you will be working with the flagship data. And I want to stress that when you're time planning or even thinking about how this might visualize, you will spend around 70 to 80% of this time data wrangling, data cleaning, analyzing, requesting that your outputs are cleared through ONS, for example. And a lot of the time here is usually underestimated. So please do factor that into any of your planning. So applicants should propose research projects which incorporate data cleaning and exploration, policy and public engagement, create easily digestible publications and academic peer-reviewed publications. Applications need to incorporate our 4 objectives to this programme of work. So they must complete useful research. They must inform future data use and data enhancements, foster useful engagement to enable project delivery, and build a community. So just unpacking those 4 objectives a little bit more. So in order to complete useful research, you need to demonstrate the potentialness of administrative data for public policy impact. And for informing future data use and data enhancements, ensuring individual and collective efforts of a fellow enhance the research value of a linked data set to benefit others, including future researchers and the data owners. Objective 3, foster useful engagement and enable project delivery. So this is where we want to encourage work with data owning to government departments and the public to help shape proposed programs of work to deliver impact and maintain public acceptance for the use of the data in research. Objective 4 isn't just about developing your own research agenda, your own research career, but it's about actively participating in a collective community that helps grow knowledge and interest around a research objective and the data used together. And this can be pre-established or it can be developed within the confines of a fellowship. So there are a number of key parties that could help with the development of a research proposal. You have those based at your universities, academic leads that are either invested and informed in particular areas of social science, or those that understand and use administrative data, or even those that are informed and have knowledge for statistical power analysis. And you also have the research officers. Now, these individuals are quite important to help you submit your application, and it's advised you get in contact with them at the earliest opportunity you have. We also have the charity, the voluntary communities, and other relevant bodies that can join you as a potential applicant to help develop and craft your research objectives. And the data owning departments and ADR England flagship dataset academic leads are always really good points of contact, not only to understand the breadth and depth of the dataset, but also how areas of research interest, key objectives from data owning departments can be crafted into research objectives that you can incorporate into an application. We also have our past fellows and ADR UK members of staff. You can read up more about what our past fellows have done through their project pages, through their blogs, through the data insights and the data explained on our website. So breaking down the physical stages of a fellowship. So the first one, as I mentioned, is all about preparing and planning for research. And there are a number of things that you can undertake during this period so you are informed, you're empowered, and you're ready to go when it comes to the next stage of your fellowship. Now, a maximum time that you could do in this kind of stage is 0.4% of your full-time equivalent. So stage 2 is about working with the data, understanding the data and exploring it, cleaning it, and then analysing it. And this is where you realise your objectives. It's where you can answer your research questions, where you then communicate your research outcomes through the various forms of dissemination, which include our core fellowship deliverables. We expect you to attend quarterly meetings, which is what we run, to understand what's going on within your programme of work, engage with us, provide feedback to us, not just on your data use, but what you are finding out through your project. And a minimum time you can spend on this is 0.6 full-time equivalent. So going on to the ADR England flagship datasets, which are part of this funding opportunity. So first of all, we have ADARC 2011, we have ASH Census 2011, we have ASH PayYE, we have our Cross Justice dataset, we have a CAFCAS Census 2021, we have our MOJ DFE linked dataset, we have our eChild dataset, we have our GRADE dataset, LEO dataset, ASH Migrant Worker Scan, we have our NMC Census, and finally RAPID. Now these are all ADR England flagship datasets. I will share these slides after, which will take you through to the links for the individual pages. And please note there are specific webinars on each of these ADR England flagship datasets where you can find out more about the breadth and depth of each one. So what to consider when developing a programme of work? Now, in the application form, there are a number of key titles that you need to answer in order to be able to submit the form properly. We have vision, approach, an applicant's capability to deliver, career development, host organisation support, resource cost and justification, data management and sharing, facilities, ethics and responsible research and innovation, feasibility, data requirements and requirements from ADR UK flagship dataset mentor. There are a number of categories that I just want to break down, but it is strongly recommended that for any application you put in, you look at the specifics of the flagship dataset, documentation and data access requirements thoroughly before you submit anything. And if you do have any questions while you're building your body of knowledge, please do reach out to the relevant parties. We are all here to help and inform. So thinking about your research objectives, how to identify and validate research questions to fulfill the ADR UK Objective 1 useful research. There are a number of points that you can go and look at: the government missions, the government department areas of research interest, inclusive the dataset specific owners, and this includes the research objectives specifically for the ADR England flagship datasets, and they can be found on our webpage alongside the announcement of our pre-funding opportunity. There are PDFs that take you through to key questions for each flagship dataset that the data owners have put together for you to help guide you into your development of your application. We also have the evidence gaps, which ADR UK's community catalysts have been working on and have put together to show what is missing in our knowledge from society. And we have objectives that can be co-developed from project partners. And there are evidence of this being in our previous fellowship calls if you have a look across our fellows project pages. We want to see strong evidence that the objectives are addressing issues that need answering in society. There are also opportunities to propose questions where you're evaluating policy changes, interventions, or programs. More importantly than me going through any of the kind of points where you can see source for gaining insights into how to identify and develop your objective is to ensure that they're feasible. Now, making sure that your work is feasible is all about what's possible with a flagship dataset and what can be done within the timings of a fellowship. There is a webinar that is coming later on next month, and it's how to write a good funding application. And this is being hosted by members of one of our community catalysts. So key outputs and expectations of an ADR research fellow. Our programme is dual focused. We want researchers to undertake and do excellent, robust and relevant research, but we also want you to feed back into our flagship dataset model and the use of the flagship data. To raise awareness of a fellow's programme of work, you have to produce a project page on the ADR website. To inform further data use and data enhancements, you are to produce a data explained. To help foster communities and communications around objectives 1, 3 and 4, we would like you to produce a data insights. In addition, there are at least one other deliverable that a fellow can choose. Public engagement event is a key point that I want to stress that needs to be thought about well in advance, and it's critical that this happens to support our mission of bringing the public voice into everything we do. There is opportunities, and we strongly encourage any researcher to do this, is to have stakeholder engagement. You can develop a project steering group that will bring all the collective voices together to help mould and shape not just what your project is about, but how your project outputs can be disseminated. We want to support good research practice and publish open access code. So anything that you do within the trusted research environment with your data that requires coding, we would like you to publish this code on an open access forum. And of course, we will strive for every researcher that we fund to produce peer-reviewed publications. And please note that data access needs to be planned around this. So if you're not planning to do a publication to the end of your fellowship, this needs to be included in how you plan to access and maintain your access to the data you are using. So I'm hoping we have Laura, who is part of our comms and engagement team, here to join us. If I could ask Laura to step on to the platform in Shader's absence today.
Thanks, Lola, and hi everyone. Really nice to see you all here. Yes, I'm Laura. I work in the ADR UK communications and engagement team. So I sort of support fellows on their public and policy-facing outputs. But I'm here today on behalf of Shader, who you can see pictured here. Shader leads our public engagement across the programme. So she'll be your sort of primary point of contact for public engagement, but she unfortunately couldn't be here today. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit around the key principles we have for public engagement for these fellowships. Next slide, please. So public engagement is embedded right at the heart of the ADR UK programme. And that makes sense because administrative data comes from the public. And so in addition to kind of making sure this data is used ethically and responsibly, we also have a duty to engage the public in how and why their data is used at every stage of our work, and to ensure that our work demonstrates trustworthiness. Understanding the public's needs, interests and concerns in relation to the use of their data and shaping research to address these is also essential for maximising the public benefit of administrative data research. And in this diagram on the right here, you can see our key public engagement principles. So that's meaningful public engagement, a mutually beneficial relationship, being accountable, being inclusive, and openness and transparency. And we define public engagement as a purposeful set of activities designed to promote an ongoing dialogue with the public about administrative data research, which is driven by active listening and responding. Next slide, please. So why is public engagement so important in these fellowships? Well, firstly, we think it's the right thing to do. Without the public, there would be no data or the infrastructure for a programme like ADI UK, and that includes all of the research we fund. So we believe it's really important and we have a duty to engage with the public at every stage of our work. Secondly, it's also really crucial to you achieving impact with your research, because by engaging with the public, listening and implementing their feedback where you can ensure that your research is geared towards achieving the greatest public benefit possible. So that might mean things like making sure your question is sort of relevant to the public's needs, that your findings are usable, and that you're sharing your work kind of with appropriate methods and language so that they can be picked up. And finally, it can also demonstrate trustworthiness. So the two-way listening and responding model we use can demonstrate trustworthiness both in your work and also in the wider sense of using administrative data for research and for public good. Next slide, please. So how can we actually do this? Across the partnership, ADI UK's public engagement activities involve various methods, and all of these can be characterised as either inclusion, which is actively involving or engaging people in shaping an endeavour, or dialogue, which is more around asking people for their views, sometimes as part of a formal process. And these approaches can work kind of in a variety of ways and for a variety of different kinds of stakeholders. So, for example, involving people in public, community or advisory panels, holding public events, or sort of hosting workshops and focus groups. Next slide, please. So some of the common challenges that tend to come up, you can see here. So when should you engage with the public? Really, you want to be thinking about that as early as possible and right the way across your project life cycles. Why do we want to engage with the public? So thinking specifically about what you want to learn from them and what impact you hope to achieve. Who do you need to speak to specifically? What kinds of public and groups, and how are you going to reach them? And how are you going to do this engagement? So what specifically do you want to achieve? And how are you going to make sure your activities are accessible and inclusive? You need to think about kind of good practice and doing this well. So being purposeful, transparent, and accountable in your engagement. And what do we mean by the public? So we're thinking about kind of stakeholders in your work who are not academics and are not policymakers. So this could be kind of the public in general or particular groups who are particularly relevant to or might benefit from your research. Next slide, please. So we've talked about some of the challenges, but the key thing to note about these fellowships is support is available to help you with this. So for practical advice, you can see the Learning Hub on our website. There's a QR code for it there, and I'll also post the link in the chat in just a moment. And also for kind of guidance, you can have a look at PEDRI, which is the Public Engagement in Data Research Initiative. They've published some good practice standards, which are a really great point for kind of planning your public engagement. You'll receive support when you start your fellowship, but this always works best if you kind of come into it with a bit of a plan that we can then support you with. And also, if you're based in a university, it's quite likely that they'll have a public engagement team who can also offer you support. So it might be good to start thinking about making those contacts now. Next slide, please. And here are just some of the case studies that have been published by other fellows and other researchers on our Learning Hub. Again, I'll post that link in the chat so you can just kind of have a look at what some other people have done for some inspiration. I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for joining us today and for delivering information on the value and the importance of including public impact in a proposal. So I just want to now spend a little bit of time outlining our guidance for completing a funding application. So there are some key dates that I want to highlight. So the opportunity will open on the 13th of November and it will close promptly on the 26th of February next year. And any late submissions will not be accepted into our assessment for either any of our funding. We would then go into our expert review phase in March with panel in April and the funding notification in May 2026. And we expect projects to start in September 2026. and all applications will need to be submitted through the funding service. And when we share this, both the link and the QR codes will be accessible to yourselves. As I mentioned, there are a number of key areas that you need to think about, you need to plan for, and you need to fill in order to submit an application. And vision is one of the biggest sections. And in vision, we want you to explain what you think your fellowship is about, what your specific objectives will be, what they will address, and why they are important for a particular area of social science. There is guidance on how to complete this section within the application form, and we do recommend that you refer to our ADR UK Research Fellowship General Specifications and our Communications and Engagement Expectations for Funded Fellows. So when we're thinking about vision, there are 4 core objectives, and primarily this section is about completing useful research. And we have some top tips that we put together. We want you to identify why your research objectives will address the advertised research priorities using the specific ADR England flagship dataset that you have identified. We want you to ensure your project is feasible, so you need to demonstrate this within this section. You need to identify how it's achievable given the flagship data sets, conditions, access requirements, and variables that are included in it, and how it can all be completed within the timings of a fellowship. We want you to explain, stress the benefits of how your work will benefit public good and in an innovative way. The next big section that you need to think about and plan for are your approach, and this is a very different section to vision. Here we want you to think about what you're actually going to do to undertake within your project to ensure your objectives are answerable and achievable. Again, there is guidance within the application form, and I can't stress enough, please do read our Research Fellowship General Specifications and the Communications and Engagements document. Thinking again about our 4 key objectives, we want you to really translate how you're going to take your vision and actually realize it in your answers. And our top tips here are outline what you will action, what you are going to do to help visualize, embody, and embrace your objectives. If a proposal outlines supplementary material, please do explain how it is relevant, why it is needed, and how its use will benefit and support your primary data source, which is the ADR England flagship dataset. And here we want you to outline the steps that are needed to make this use of this dataset possible. We want you to explain how you will meaningfully include the public, data owners, and broader stakeholders in your programme of work. Not just outline who they are, but what they will do and how they will benefit you realising your objectives. There are a number of other kind of categories that I just want to highlight. Again, there's guidance on how to complete them in the application form. So we want to ensure that you have identified the correct data access requirements. And if costings, for example, if the data is held in sale, then you need to include the costings in your costings and in your application form. We want you to identify that data access provisions are in place at your host institution, or if there's extra work that needs to be done to bring these data access provisions into play and how this is going to be done to ensure that it's achievable to be in place before you start your fellowship. So ADR UK fellows past and actually present have stressed the value of mentors that understand the environment you have to work in, the data that you're working with, and our programme of work. We have redesigned and redeveloped our ADR UK mentorship programme. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but you have to include the costings of an ADR UK flagship dataset mentor within your application resource cost and justification. Feasibility. I've mentioned feasibility a lot, and this is quite critical to our programme. because we want to ensure that what you're proposing is possible with the ADR flagship dataset you have identified. Now, the feasibility question is new to this funding opportunity. Now, the feasibility question has been developed following our review of previous research commissioning, and it's been introduced to improve alignment between the proposals that we receive and the data realities. So what is it? It's a review by data owners and ONS to confirm that the data available and contained within each flagship dataset is appropriate and proportionate to answer your aims, and any linkage or access conditions can be met, and therefore there will be no problems in you starting your fellowship with the ADR England flagship dataset you have identified. We do have a top tip. We suggest and strongly encourage you to look at the dataset documentation, attend the dataset webinar briefings, and look at the ADR UK metadata catalogue to validate your plans before applying. So why does this all matter? It really matters because our funding decision is dependent on whether your project is feasible given the data available and the time allocated for you to undertake a fellowship. We know it's complex using admin data. We understand quite often researchers joining our programme are some of the first few researchers to use this data within the academic setting. Therefore, we've invested a lot of time and resources in ensuring that our fellows feel supported. KRI ADR UK has funded 45 research fellowships since 2021. And you can browse past and current projects on our webpage. You can read impact case studies to see how our funding has realised research potentials that wouldn't have been possible without access to this linked administrative data. So how are we supporting prospective applicants? As I mentioned, we have dataset webinars. There is still time to sign up to future webinars, or you can watch past dataset briefings on our YouTube channel. We have information on our website about trusted research environment that you will have to work in. We also have recorded information on our web pages from the two trusted research environments for this funding call, ONS and SAIL. And we also want to support you in writing a good funding application. We do have a webinar coming up next month. Again, if you click through to our website, there will be instructions on how you can sign up for this. And we have our ADR UK community catalysts. The catalysts are a phenomenal development in how we think about developing research objectives. We have 2 community catalysts at the moment. You can both join the catalysts, you can interact with the catalysts to see how they've identified not only what is missing from our knowledge in social science, but actually what is there, but we may not have enough evidence to support it. One thing that previous fellows have said to me, to us, to our programme, is that the opportunity to work with our ADR flagship dataset gives them the chance to develop the statistics, to develop the numbers around hypotheses they have generated from talking to individuals, but they've never been able to realise them without this type of big data access. We have our peer-to-peer support for applicants. So this is during the process where you're developing your research application. There is an opportunity to engage with our current fellows, to ask questions through a one-off meeting about the fellowship programme, about developing objectives. If applicable and possible, there may be opportunities to interact at the data specific level. And there is an opportunity to join our ADR UK flagship dataset mentoring programme. This programme only activates for successful applicants, but you can think about it now. And if you do want to use it, then you do need to cost it into your application. A mentor will be assigned to you at the start of your fellowship, and this will be based on your needs. So what experiences you have coming into the programme and what might you need support on going forward. So the peer-to-peer support allows any applicant to gain insights to our fellowship programme from our current fellows, as mentioned. And these consultations can be used when an applicant is seeking guidance on data set regarding the development of a specific question, insights into benefits of stakeholder engagement, and then how to think about and develop research objectives, or how a previous fellow did that develop their own research objectives and seek guidance and support the actual application process. If you are interested in receiving a free peer-to-peer support session, please do email us, and our email is here on the screen. I just want to flag a few important documentations. I'm not going to go through this, but when the slides are shared, these will become really helpful when you're thinking about A, if you want to apply, and B, then your support in applying for our programme. And just as a reminder, there are links to our ADR England flagship datasets and the specific research priority questions for this funding opportunity call. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you for listening, and I will now open up the floor for questions. And I am going to bring my my current colleagues onto the screen as well, as we are a team in managing this programme of work. Steve, do we have any questions?
We do. Hello, everyone. They have been coming in thick and fast.
Oh, exciting.
So, yeah, we may not be able to answer all of these right here, right now. But as Lola mentioned right at the top, we will take all these away and get you your answers and publish them on the ADR website, along with the recording and the slide deck that goes with it. So, Karen's been having a look at these. I've been having a look at these. So I'm going to pick one at random, and we'll see if we can answer it for you. So first one I've got here is there any flexibility in the September start date? For example, if you needed to start a little bit later for one reason or another. Is that allowable, Lola?
It depends what later means. We ideally want all our fellows to start at September, because then it aligns with how we're going to manage our programme over the next 5 years. If there are specific reasons why, for example, current contracts are still running, we wouldn't want to limit any applications to our funded programme. So my suggestion is to drop us an email and tell us when you would be looking to start, and provide a reason for that, and we can take that conversation forward from there.
Absolutely, yes. Drop us a message with your specific circumstances, and we'll come back to you on that one. So, Karen, would you like to have a go at one of these questions, or would you like me to pick another one?
Yeah, happy to have a go at any of these. I did write a few comments in the chat, although I see one comment has just returned. So I'm thinking that comment didn't come through. Can a senior lecturer, permanent post holder, apply? Yeah, absolutely. Like Lola said, we very much welcome all and any researchers to apply. We are interested in, and that might be kind of early career researchers, or it might be those that are new to administrative data, but further on in their careers. There was also a question in here, if I've got experience of using data and using them inside trusted research environments, is that okay too? And the answer to all of those is yes. So we're interested in driving up the use of our flagship data sets. We're interested in bringing in new researchers, developing new skills. We're interested in continuing to support really meaningful and impactful research being done on these data sets. I guess just a point on the sort of senior lecturer side, the large bulk of the costs will be salary costs. If you find the salary costs go over and above the maximum sum, which is £200,000 full economic cost, you are able to scale back the FTE, but we recommend it's absolutely no less than 0.6%. Sorry, not 0.6 FTE, excuse me. So hopefully that answers the question about who can apply. Might have covered off a couple there.
Okay. I'm going to perhaps pick another one here. This one's more about understanding past applications. So there's a question about sharing any successful applications that a potential applicant could have a look at. And the answer to that one is we aren't able to share any successful applications, unfortunately, but there are a couple of things that we can point you towards that might be of use to you. First of all, we do have the Writing a Good Funding Application webinar coming up, so I definitely recommend signing up for that if you can. The other thing that I would recommend that you did is really to engage early on with the relevant data owner for the data set you're interested in using. They are the experts on their data, and they will be able to help you and guide you to ensure that your proposal is feasible with the data set that you're looking at. Beyond that, we do have a peer-to-peer support consultation scheme that is available. That's actually on the funding, on the pre-announcement for the funding opportunity on our website, and basically we'll match you up with a past fellow with experience around your data set, and you can have a chat with them to get some insights that way. And beyond that, as Lola mentioned as well, the successful applicants, provided you've costed it into your application, will be eligible for a mentor from a past fellow as they work through their delivering their project. So I hope that answers that question.
Just to add, Steve, that those that are delivering the good, how to write a good funding application, both individuals have been part of our peer review and expert review for previous funding opportunities. So not only are they talking about it, they would have seen quite a lot of the applications that come through.
Excellent point. Absolutely. Karen,
Shall I take another one, Steve?
Yes, please.
So there's a question here: can additional data sets be used alongside flagship data sets? So I'm not sure when this question came up. It could have been before Lola covered it. But just to recap, that the primary data absolutely has to be flagship data sets, but we will allow the use of some supplementary data sets where it's adding value to the project. These data sets, though, must already be available in the same trusted research environment that you're using your flagship data sets. So for our ADR England flagship data sets, that's primarily the ONS Secure Research Service, though there are a couple of data sets that are eligible in this round that you would have to access via sale. So any supplementary data would have to be in the same TRE as your flagship data set, and that would be data that's already available in the trusted research environment, or data that can easily be ingested by the trusted research environment, providing they agree to that. So if you've got ideas about supplementary data, the best thing is to contact ONS or SAIL, depending on where your flagship data set would be, to kind of check requirements and establish whether that would be feasible. But just to note that as applicants, you are responsible for making sure that your projects are feasible, and you're kind of working with data owners and trusted research environments to establish that. Yeah, so any further questions on that, yeah, do follow up with the TRE. Or you can always fall back on our generic email address if needs be.
There's a couple of questions in here sort of around location of the potential applicant. So one of the questions is about being UK based but outside of England with existing links, and the question is, would the application be disadvantaged? Does it need to be England focused? I think the answer to that is you can be based anywhere within the UK at an eligible research organisation. The focus, though, is on the use of English data, but there are some aspects of some data sets that have UK or other devolved nation elements as well. So in the second part of that, I would probably say that you should probably investigate the data fully to understand what is actually what actually makes up the full linked data set. Yeah, and any doubts, speak to the data owner themselves.
I also think it's important to stress that you have to be within the UK to access this data owing to security requirements for data access. For example, even if you're registered and eligible and based at a UK establishment, but you work overseas, you won't be able to access the data overseas. You have to be within the UK to access the data and access the trusted research environment.
I could take one, Steve.
Yes, please.
So we've had some questions about how fellows would be allocated with an ADR dataset mentor and whether applicants are supposed to build those relationships whilst writing the application. Any applicant that's interested in an ADR UK flagship dataset mentor, and we would definitely recommend this, all you need to do is state that you're interested in that in your application and include the recommended budget within your costings. I think that's about £3,000 if I'm right, but there is guidance in there, and I'm sure Steve and Lola will correct me. Then if you are successful, we'll work with you at that point when we're making the award to you to understand what your needs are in terms of an ADR UK flagship dataset mentor, and do our best to make the best match between your needs and the skills and expertise of our collection of ADR UK mentors, which will include very many of our past and potentially present fellows. So the mentorship scheme is designed to support you during your fellowship rather than help you build your application per se. If you do want to speak to a past fellow as you're preparing your application and to get a sense of what might be entailed in this kind of fellowship using these kinds of data inside secure environments, then like we've mentioned, there is the peer-to-peer support offer that's available while you're writing your application. But the mentors, yeah, you just state that you're interested in that and we'll match you up once you're successful and we're at that stage. So hopefully that makes sense.
Can I also say that the ADR flagship dataset mentor doesn't replace anything that you're already working with to provide support or mentorship within your institution, particularly if there's key statisticians you want to work with, if there are other researchers that maybe are compatible to the work you're proposing or could help support and inform you, you can still include them within your project proposal. They're just not part of our mentorship program, so they'd be an additional benefit.
Okay, just a quick one then. Question about the recordings of all these sessions. Yes, everything will be recorded and published on the website, including the supporting slide decks and FAQs that we compile from your questions. But I'm going to pick out another one here, and Karen and Lola, I think you probably are very well placed to answer this one. There's a person who seems to have all of the blocks in place. So a project that's using the eChild dataset, organisational has AOC, access to the dataset on SRS, and is an accredited researcher. And the question is, can they apply for this research fellowship to fund the last phase of the project? It's a multi-stage, multi-phase project.
I think this is quite a good question, and probably not a question we've answered before. So it might be one that's worthy of following up. But I think my initial reaction is that could potentially work. It might just be about understanding how the bit that we fund is potentially kind of, I don't know if discrete's quite the right word, but there's clear rationale and outputs and deliverables. And I think primarily it's about, is the project answering our objectives? Is it using flagship data sets? Is it delivering on all the outputs we want to? So primarily it's got to tick all of those boxes. And I think if it does that, then arguably, yes. But it's probably worth checking. It feels a little bit more nuanced. So I just probably encourage that person to follow up with us maybe, and we'll confirm with you if there's any issues in applying for this fellowship in that particular opportunity, in that particular circumstance rather.
Absolutely. Okay. I'll go with another one if that's all right. So are applicants allowed to include co-investigators to spread the workload, or is it expected that this is carried out with one researcher alongside some mentoring?
Yeah, and there's another similar question like that as well, asking, can we cost in research assistance? So yeah, it is a legitimate cost to include other support and other expertise within your fellowship. That's fine. It obviously has to be within budget, and primarily, this is your fellowship. But I think it's legitimate, yes, to kind of where you feel like maybe there's a particular gap or you need some expertise, it makes sense to cost that in. I mean, we had one example with one of our past fellows where they'd not particularly done any quantitative analysis before. So they weren't just new to using administrative data inside a secure environment, new to doing quantitative data research. So I think in that instance, they probably had mentorship and support around that particular aspect. So yes. But what would you add? Would Steve or Lola add anything to that?
That if you are wanting to include anyone who will actively work on the programme, they need to be provisioned for accessing the secure research environment as well as themselves. And it has to be one individual fellow, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, within this funding pool. We can't have co-PI or co-led fellowships. It has to be an individual that's putting themselves forward as a lead on a project, and the person who will hold that project. And this is owing to changes in UKRI policy.
Yes, it is a single person project lead with no project co-leads, although, as Karen mentioned, you can have supporting staff costed into the proposal as well. So I hope that answers that one. And there's also another one around the applications about, do you need to be employed by the proposed host institution at the time of application, or if you're planning to move there and you already have their support? I think that evidence of an employment contract beginning in September of 2026 would probably be okay. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Lola or Karen.
The host institution has to submit the application form through their their system that interacts with the UKRI funding service. So if an institution is prepared to put through that form on your behalf, assume you'll be coming in on a soft money contract, then that's up to them. But you have to be the institution has to be accountable, and you also have to identify the provisioning needs for data access is in place or is costed in place. So all that infrastructure, it does become a bit of an importance to be more proactive about understanding what you will have instead of what you have now and what will be needed for the future.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Lola. And I think if you've got any follow-up questions on that, or for any others that, you know, just happen to naturally be falling in between institutions because jobs are changing, and you've got any questions about that or specific circumstances, then just get in touch with the team.
Excellent. I've just spotted a really good question in the chat, actually, that is quite good around data. And that is, can a research fellowship project propose the use of 2 flagship data sets, no linkage involved between them, for example, eChild and Leo, for a more comprehensive picture of a geographical area, etc., etc.
I was hoping this kind of question might come up, because I envisage some of research programs going forward where ADR flagship data sets are complementary to each other in research questions. The biggest practical aspect of running the two together is if both data sets can be held within one project area within the SRS. You can't link eChild or Leo with any other data, and I would suggest you get in contact with ONS, and there are links on our web pages, or if you drop us an email, we can put you in touch with a specific team to understand how that might be possible from a managerial point of view, whether you could do it in one project space, if you could apply for 2 project spaces. I don't know the indices of that, but it is definitely a very, very, very valid question.
And I would say the other thing to bear in mind, if both of those data sets are new to you, and the point that Lola was making about, you know, the feedback we get in general from researchers using these data, it can take a significant amount of time to actually get to know and understand, discover the data, clean the data, you know, potentially up to sort of 70% or more of your time. So it's just worth being aware that there might be twice the amount of that kind of work to do. So really thinking carefully about what can be delivered within an 18-month time frame. So deliverability is a really important factor to think about. I've got a quick one here, Steve.
Yep.
Is the Public Health Research Database, England and Wales, considered a flagship data set for the purposes of this research fellowship round? So as far as I'm aware, this is not in any case available to all accredited researchers yet. So I think do let us know if you think otherwise, but in any case, and making sure data are available to all accredited researchers is one essential feature of our flagship data sets. In any case, I mean, the simple answer is no, it's not eligible in this round. Is it eligible to be a flagship data set in future? Not if it's not available to all accredited researchers, which I think is a sort of a key stumbling block on that one. But do let us know if you understand that to be different.
Excellent. Okay, just to prime Laura and Shada. Shada has now been able to join us. Well, I've got a public engagement question, so I'm just going to bring you on, Shada, so that you can say hello. And the question is, do we need to make a strong connection for the public engagement part and demonstrate that in our proposal, or can we just say what our plans are for public engagement in the application?
Thanks, Steve. Yes, you do need to. So, and sorry everyone that I wasn't able to join earlier. I had a clash, but I'm glad to have made it for the Q&A. Yes, what you want to do is come in with a plan that demonstrates its relevancy to your project, and that at minimum describes who you plan to engage with and why, how you will recruit them, the frequency of your meetings, and what value you believe this will add to your project, or how you plan to utilize the feedback. Public engagement is fluid. Your plan may change, but what we are really looking for is that you've thought about it. It's that you understand that it is a central part of your research project. And there's a question, sorry, I was just in the middle of answering a question someone else had written in the chat just around whether or not you should be engaging before the fellowship has started or not. At minimum, we expect you to have a plan that demonstrates that you've thought about it and that you can identify the value that it can add. Plans will change, that's okay, but you've got to have thought about it. But if you can engage before the fellowship, then what that gives you is a question that you know will answer a real world need. And then that sets you up really, really well, so that once you're on the other side and you've finished your fellowship, you will have produced something that can actually, that you're pretty sure that will be used. And that's ultimately what we want, is we want this research to be useful and relevant and addressing these real world needs. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. I'll just pause answering that question myself. Karen, have you got any others that you want to come in with?
Yes. Lola, do you want to have a go at this one?
The code, I thought that was what it was coming to.
Well, the code, but also this is the one I was going to ask. It feels very unlikely fellows will be able to complete a draft academic paper and get it through peer review in 18 months, especially as we can't control how fast a journal is. How have past fellows dealt with maintaining data access post-fellowship?
Completely agree with that, and that's something that when you're working within the ONS, you just extend your access to your data and your project, and that is quite an easy process. You have to fill in a form and contact ONS. Because we fund ONS, access to the ONS is free for researchers. However, if you work within SAIL, you need to cost in extended access to the SAIL data bank to be able to continuously access the data within their system. Again, talking to fellows who have finished, still going through it, finished it a long time ago, they still use their data and their data outputs in everything that they're doing. They're still writing up their papers. Process of clearance and getting information off the ONS SRS can be timely, and if you're going backwards and forwards between reviewers, you are going to need access to that. So planning for within ONS is a lot more simple than it is planning for continued access within SAIL because of the costs associated with it. Don't quote me, I need to check. I can follow it up on an email if somebody wanted to contact. I think access is granted an extended period for every 3 years. I'm hoping there are some past fellows or current fellows in the system who may be able to just confirm or deny if it's 3 or 5 years that access is.
There was one of the questions I answered in the chat was about if there's plans for fellowships using data from Wales or Scotland. So I don't know if people managed to see the answer to that. But yeah, we're just at the start of the next 5-year investment phase from 2026 to 2031, where we'll be running 3 rounds of fellowships. So this is round 1. It's going to be for England flagship data sets only. And rounds 2 and 3 will be open to data sets available in ADR Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. So watch this space for rounds 2 and 3.
Absolutely.
Can we just follow up on the code question quickly? Sorry. So publishing open access code on repositories like GitHub. So I know eChild hold their own code within a section of GitHub. I know MAJ is looking to hold a section within GitHub going forward, and many of the fellows just freely and openly post up what they have used within their projects on GitHub. So when we're saying share open access code, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a forum right now, but we are expecting you to do that, and you can signpost to how you've done it or where you've done it through your project page on the ADR UK website.
Excellent. Okay, So I think we're getting towards the end of the allotted time here, Lola. And I think the questions are slowing down now. Obviously, as I said, we're going to take all these away, get them all compiled, and give written answers that we'll publish on the website. But if I could pass it back to you, Lola, just to wrap it all up.
I've just, Steve, noticed one more question that I think we might not have answered. Maybe this is a good one for you, Steve. Do we need to know the names of the support staff stroke mentors at the time of the application? Or is it just enough to add their names to the data application later, once the project is approved?
Yeah, so in terms of applying for the funding, I did post a link in there to the ESRC's research funding guide, where you can find all the information on costs and roles within a grant. So it depends on what their role is as to whether or not they need to be named in the funding application. When it comes to actually accessing the data, they will need to be have the same level of accreditation and access that you will as a project lead. And that answers that one, I hope.
Certainly the ADR UK mentor doesn't need to be named. You just need to, there's a section in the form where you essentially tick a box to say, I would like an ADR UK data mentor, and we'll support you with that if you're successful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
former fellows can reapply. That's just for that one come in. we have repeat customers, I can assure you.
It shows the validity of the programme in my mind, because it's dual focus. It's one, it funds really, really good and pivotal research, but it also brings this community together where this is constant cycle of enriching, informing and improving. And personally, from someone coming from outside of administrative data into the programme, it's one of the greatest strengths. So if you do have any questions, anyone in the audience who's still around, please do get in contact, and we will endeavour to do our best to answer them ourselves or signpost you via direct contact to those who are informed in certain areas of the infrastructure that we aren't necessarily posed in expertise in. And thank you everyone for your attention today. Please do sign up to future webinars on data, some of the flagship data specific webinars. I strongly recommend attending How to Write a Good Funding Application and the Community Catalysts, breaking down their evidence gaps to help signpost and refine thoughts on developing research objectives and agendas. And thank you for the rest of the team.